Hello? I must be going. I cannot stay. I came to say I must be going. I'm glad I came, but just the same, I must be going. La la.
Irish dramatist and memoirist Sean O'Casey said, "Laughter is wine for the soul. Laughter soft or loud and deep, tinged through with seriousness, the hilarious declaration made by a man that life is worth living." This is the Producers Lounge podcast, the best podcast online for tips and tricks on producing great film, television, and web content. Welcome back for Season 2, Episode 8, hosted and produced by greaterandgrander.com. On this week's episode, we're chatting with Steve Stoliar, who has written and produced as well as authored the book and screenplay Raised Eyebrows, about Steve's time working for Groucho Marx out of his home in Beverly Hills the last 3 years of Groucho's life. And as reported by Deadline, the film adaptation will start production soon. Guys, I gotta be honest, this interview was an absolute delight for me. People close to me know that I am a huge Marx Brothers fan. I grew up on their movies, and they had a huge impact on me. I reached out to Steve when I stumbled on his book, both because it opened a window into Groucho's later years, and it also reminded me of my time working for Penny Marshall out of her home. I gotta say, this book is hilarious. I highly recommend it. The only thing I recommend more highly is the audiobook version, which is narrated by Steve himself, and he does a phenomenal job. His impressions of Groucho and Dick Cavett are spot on, and I can only assume that his impressions of Aaron Fleming are spot on as well, and the book is hilarious. Raised Eyebrows, the movie, will star Geoffrey Rush, Sienna Miller, and Charlie Plummer. As a writer, he has also penned episodes of Murder, She Wrote, Simon and Simon, the new WKRP in Cincinnati, and Sliders, to name a few. Additionally, he has written, produced, and narrated a number of pop culture documentaries on the Beatles, the Three Stooges, and other subjects. Here now is my conversation with Steve Stoliar.
Menus, and then give me a couple minutes. I'll come back for your drinks.
It will time you.
The waitress special, it's a scrambled egg, spinach, and the mushrooms. Or if you like tuna salad or anything like that, the Otis is very good as well. And maybe, you know what? Maybe ask her server. She'll know something other.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No worries, guys. So come back for you.
We were thrown by the apron.
I cannot find anything healthier, you guys.
Well, everything in moderation.
Yeah.
I'm triple vaxxed and in good health.
Excellent.
Are you triple vaxxed?
I am triple vaxxed. I am boosted. I have not left the apartment in a week and a half. I'm good.
I'm flattered.
Yes, but here's the thing. I made a mistake yesterday. I've been trying to stay on a diet for the past month, and yesterday I slipped and I ate an entire chocolate cake all by myself.
Well, so much for my everything in moderation.
Yes. By the way, so you originally grew up in Missouri, right?
I was born in Missouri and lived there till I was all but 8. And then we moved to California. But I still have vivid, happy memories of playing in the snow and catching lightning bugs. Not the same season, of course.
Of course.
But I still have vivid memories of St. Louis and happy ones. But then my dad's job resulted in him being transferred to California, so we made the westward trek on Route 66, as in get your kicks on.
Now, I remember you mentioned it in the book, but I forget, did your dad work as a contractor or?
He was he worked for a chemical corporation training salesmen.
Oh, okay.
And they said, we're going to open up a West Coast branch. Would you like to be in charge of that? And he said yes, and decided we were moving. I don't remember any consultation with the family. And I think Dad, as the paterfamilias, just sort of like in Meet Me in St. Louis when Leon Ames says, I got this job and the family's going to be leaving Missouri. And they all go, oh, no. And it was tougher on my sisters because they had long-standing close friendships and knew no one in California. So it's like, here are all the people you've gone to school with and played with and gossiped with and hung out with. They're thousands of miles away. I I don't remember it being difficult leaving my friends. Hello.
Drinks, right?
No, you assumed.
Coffee or just water for me. No,
Coffee and water, please.
please water, and then you guys ready to order as well?
Yes.
All right, let me grab it for you.
He's still not the waiter. He keeps asking and then saying it's not. It's a very passive aggressive thing.
It is.
And is there anything else you'd like? Yeah, I'd like that. That's not my department.
I'm in the union. Sorry, I don't.
Yeah, we can't. They'll sue us. Where was I?
You were 8, and you'd mentioned your sisters.
Oh, what was difficult for me
Yeah.
was we were moving into an apartment in Van Nuys in the San Fernando Valley, and I was informed that they don't allow pets. And we had a cat named Smokey back in St. Louis. And I remember standing on the front lawn of the apartment just crying, and this girl comes out and said, boy, what are you crying at? And I said, they won't let me keep Smokey. So we went back to St. Louis and packed up and had to give Smokey away. So that was the part that was tough for me.
She just thinks you're to go order up front right out here, okay? Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any carcinogens or only healthy things?
Oh, you know what?
Like Splenda or...
You know what? I think we should have some secret Splendor around. Let me look.
secret Splenda. All right.
We don't put it out, but let me see.
Yeah, act nonchalant. Whistle when you deliver.
Secret Splenda. I'm pretty sure that's a club in Santa Monica.
I thought it was a one of those romance novels. The shredded bodice on the cover.
You went to UCLA, correct?
Yes, I shouldn't nod. It's not. No one can hear me in space. No one can hear you nod.
Now, one thing I was curious about when I was reading Raised Eyebrows was you mentioned that you met Groucho because you were involved in the campaign to get one of his movies remastered.
Animal Crack.
Animal Crack.
Re-released.
But then it didn't kind of go into the details about how you got involved with that campaign. And that's a pretty ambitious campaign for someone who's 17, 18.
I think it's one of those I didn't know what I didn't know. I think in my naivete, I thought, hey, let's... I had seen a bootleg copy of Animal Crackers at a theater in Orange County. And I mean, all my friends were Marx Brothers fanatics. And this was the great missing link. They only made about a dozen movies.
Yeah.
They weren't like the Three Stooges or Laurel and Hardy, where they made a lot of short films and some silent films and feature films for decades. They really, they were in vaudeville, and then they were on Broadway for several years, and then Hollywood, and then broke up in the 40s and went their separate ways. And then Groucho had You Bet Your Life on radio and television. So there's not, it wasn't like they made so many movies. Animal Crackers was their second film. It was based on their stage play of the same name. It's the one which Groucho played Captain Spaulding, where his theme song, Hooray for Captain Spaulding, comes from. And basically because of a clerical error, the copyright had expired and the rights to it had reverted back to the people who had created the play.
Oh, interesting.
George Kaufman, Maury Riskin, Burt Kalmer, and Harry Ruby. And when it was made at Universal, when Universal sold their old films to MCA Universal in the 50s, Animal Crackers was included in the package, but they didn't have the right to put it in circulation on television, in packages of old movies or re-release it. And it was just part of what they owned but couldn't do anything about. And Universal saw zero reason to spend good money on an old black and white movie from 1930.
Right.
Now, these days, of course, there's a much more archival psyche, and people are more aware, and there's things that, you've got digitally remastered things and restored, old footage is found and it's cleaned up, and it ends up in bonus features on a DVD or something. But the idea that something historic hadn't been seen and they had the means to do it, but they didn't care about it. It really was the great missing link. We all knew, and it was supposed to be one of their best movies. It wasn't like this thing they did towards the end that convinced them to stop making it. They were just retracting their landing gear when they started on Animal Crack. So, in my ignorance, I thought, I wonder if Groucho Marx knows it's playing at this theater in Anaheim. I'd like to tell him it does in case he hasn't seen it. But I knew that his phone number wasn't listed in the Beverly Hills phone book, but from having thumbed through it, I knew that Harry Ruby's was, who wrote the music for Animal Crackers, was one of Groucho's oldest friends, worked on Duck Soup. Anyway, so I called, and luckily, he didn't answer. It was a nurse who took my name and number and said she'd give him the message. If that hadn't happened, none of what happened after that, I don't think would have occurred. So he called me, which at the time was a thrill, because it's like, I'm talking to one of Groucho's oldest friends. Oh my God. And I told him about Animal Crackers, and he said, well, I'll certainly give Grouch the message. And I thought, he's going to tell Groucho something because of me. And then on New Year's Day of 1974, I got a phone call from a woman named Erin Fleming. We didn't, but thank you for asking. Thank you for letting us see their lunch. George Kaufman in the 50s wrote a humorous article about a school for waiters where they learn to do things like walk in just as you get to the punchline of a long story and ask if everything's okay. Or they come over and move the salt and pepper shaker half an inch for no reason at all and then leave. I have found this to be repeatedly true, even 70 years later, that is one of the things they learn is to come by right as you're getting to, I opened the door and there before me, can I get you anything? Did you save room for dessert?
The only difference is now that they're working with the NSA to listen to everything you're saying.
Oh, I have no problem with that. I knew who Erin Fleming was because of my fanaticism as a Groucho fan, that she was sort of a combination girlfriend, agent, and also she had appeared with him in his one-man show at Carnegie Hall. And she said that Harry Ruby had given them the message, and she wanted to know why that theater was playing Animal Crackers. They had no right to play it. It's illegal for that, as if it was my idea, and I didn't know I don't know why or if it's okay or not. I'm just letting you know. So we talked for a while, and she had to leave, but she initially thought she wanted to bring me with her to Universal in the Black Tower, where I eventually worked in the 70s, to meet with Sid Sheinberg, the president of Universal, basically as Exhibit A. Here is this kid whose friends and he drove in the middle of the gas crisis to Anaheim to see this movie. Don't you think it's worth clearing the rights, spending the money, making crap? But then in between then and the next time we talked, I hit upon the idea of a petition drive to multiply the striking power of me, because it would be easy to just dismiss, well, sure, this kid likes Groucho Marx. We're not going to spend thousands of dollars because of this kid. But if we could get a petition drive and stir up publicity or something. So at UCLA, they have Bruin Walk is this long sloping cement pathway that leads you into the middle of the campus. And there were tables that were set up that had petition drives and propaganda for like legalizing marijuana and ending the Vietnam War, gay rights, Iran rights. And I started the committee for the re-release of Animal Crackers. So here we were with all of these heavy-duty political things trying to get an old Marx Brothers movie re-released. And it's funny because people were so weirded out, the students, this is back in the Watergate days,
Right.
and they're asking, who's going to get a copy of the petition? Do we have to be registered voters? Do you need our full name? Do you need our address? And you still had hesitant people. It's like, I love the Marx Brothers, and I think it's a good idea. I just don't want to sign my name to something. Right. But I continued talking to Aaron, which again was such a thrill to me to be that. It's like now I'm one step removed from the man himself. As a matter of fact, during one of our phone calls, I said, while I have you on the phone, I wanted to find something out. A lot of books say Groucho was born in 1895, and some say 1890. Which one is the right date? And she said, just a minute. Groucho, when were you born? And I hear in the distance, October 2nd, 1890. And she said, did you hear? And I said, I heard. And I thought, oh my God, he's right there. He's right there. So she arranged for Groucho to come to UCLA. I extended my hand and said, Groucho, I am very happy to be meeting you after all this time. And he said, well, you should be. And Aaron said, this is Steve Stoliar. He's the one who's trying to get Animal Crackers re-released. And Groucho said, oh, well, did you get it? And I said, that not yet, but we're working on it. And he said, well, you better or I'll fire you. And I said, I didn't realize I was working for you. How much are you paying me? And he said, a little less than nothing. And that was it's like I had met Groucho Marx. And we sat down side by side while there was a crush of students and press because Groucho's press agent had made it known that this was going to be. And there we were sitting, chatting about Animal Crackers and Groucho. And my heart is leaping out of my shirt. I mean, it was such a moment for me. And Groucho, he had had strokes, he had slowed down, but the mechanism of his humor remained.
Right.
So I remember one reporter said, Mr. Marx, what is the purpose of your appearance here today? And he said, I expect to get lunch. And she said, no, but I mean, besides that. And he said, I may get dinner. And he would, what do you think about how the young generation has embraced the Marx Brothers? Well, I'm flattered by it. It's very nice. And then he said, last Halloween, 3 kids came to my door dressed as Groucho, Harpo, and Chico. And I said, what did you give them? And he said, sent for the police. So we chatted a while, and then he left, and the cameras put their equipment away. And lo and behold, we sufficiently embarrassed Universal so that they figured, fine, we will put this out, we'll put it out in one theater, and we don't want to hear about it. So it had a re-premiere at the UA Westwood. I rented a tuxedo. It was a great moment in my life. And the friends of mine from the committee were there, and Groucho and Aaron were there, and other celebrities. And there was a fresh print of Animal Crackers. And it ended up breaking the house record that had been set by the French Connection several years earlier. It was very gratifying to see that it wasn't just my friends and I that wanted to see this. But, my roommate Daryl and I would be at a coffee shop looking over at the theater and see this line of kids in tennis shoes and T-shirts and blue jeans waiting along the wall for the next screening. And it's like, wow, we did that. So that summer, I had a couple of summer jobs fall through, for which I remain eternally grateful. And with my back against the wall and my dad saying, I don't want you sitting on your fanny all summer. I want you to get a job. Go to Taco Bell and see if they need someone. See if they need a dishwasher here. But I don't want. And I thought, I have nothing to lose. So I called Aaron and I said, is there anything you think at all that maybe I might possibly? She said, well, you know, dear, I had been Groucho's secretary, but now I'm his manager. And because of all the interest lately, his fan mail has really gotten out of control. We need someone to handle that. And we need someone who really knows his Marx Brothers to organize all of Groucho's memorabilia that's going to be donated to the Smithsonian after he's gone. And I'm thinking, please, 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 please. And in my mind, it was like a Tex Avery cartoon where I've zipped over and I'm standing on Groucho's doorstep while she's still on the phone explaining the job to me.
And there's just a dust trail going down
That's it.
sunset.
That's it. It's beep, beep. I thought I would be working in an office like on Wilshire, and maybe once or twice a month Groucho would come in to sign checks or collect mail or something. But I'd get to see him. She said, oh, no, dear. There's a room in the house, and you can make that your office, and you can make your own hours. And I thought, and they're going to give me money to do this? My first week, I worked Monday through Saturday, and then figured I would take Sunday off. Good enough for God to rest on Sunday. I would give it serious thought. So I was sitting in our home in Tarzana on Sunday thinking, why would I want to be here instead of inside Groucho Marx's house? So I showered and dressed and went. So I just wanted to immerse myself in the atmosphere. So initially I worked 7 days a week during the summer because I just couldn't get enough of it. And it was an astonishing and gratifying experience for me because I was such a fan. You know, I don't know if you've had the experience where you meet someone when you're younger, and then when you're older, you come to appreciate who they were, and you think, I wish I had known that at the time because I would have asked them about this, or I only knew a little. In this case, I was such a fanatic. I knew all of the people that he would talk about. I knew his old friends who would come by to visit or have lunch or something.
And that's one of the great things about the book. You talk about meeting with Dick Cavett, meeting with Mae West, meeting with all of these Hollywood icons.
As cool as it was to meet a lot of the stars, it was equally cool to be meeting these people I knew from watching the credits at the end of Groucho's movies. I mean, Maury Riskind and S.J. Perelman and Irving Brecker and Nat Perrin. These people that I knew from the Groucho letters that were so common. Here's some extra napkins, please.
And Splenda. Do you have any Splenda?
Let me check.
Thank you. Thank you on my behalf.
Absolutely.
And what was also cool was I was meeting these people in the comfort of his home. So it wasn't like I was just some wide-eyed fan or autograph hound, because even if they didn't know who I was or why I was there, they figured there must be a reason. Maybe it's his grandson or something. So I was able to meet these people under comfortable circumstances. And because it was a very egalitarian household, I was instructed to eat at the table, not in the kitchen. I wasn't treated like help. It was like, no. So whether someone famous was coming for lunch or if it was just Groucho and Aaron and me or Groucho and a nurse and me, I would get to have lunch with Groucho Marx every day and listen and ask him questions about it.
We all good?
I haven't the slightest idea. I haven't taken a bite yet. But did you ever find the Splenda?
The Splenda, I looked around. I don't think we had any, but...
Okay. Well, would you run down to Ralph's and get some?
Oh, yeah. I got you.
I got to spend quality time with my hero. Not only was he Groucho, the guy from all the movies, but he was someone who knew these mythic figures personally, like W.C. Fields and George Gershwin and James Thurber. And it's like he knew them in 3 dimensions in color. Plus, he was a man from 1890. He was someone whose firsthand memories went from before the Wright brothers to after Neil Armstrong landed on the moon, which is a jaw-dropping chunk of history. I mean, he was this living witness to all that.
I never even thought about that. That's incredible.
I asked him once, how far back do you remember? And he said, I guess the Spanish-American War, 1898. And he was even, they got into, the Marx Brothers got into vaudeville in the early years of the 20th century, and initially were a singing act. And Groucho actually sang at the Metropolitan Opera House in New York on the same bill as Enrico Caruso at a benefit to raise money for the victims of the San Francisco earthquake of 1906.
Oh my goodness.
He was 16. So he was this living time capsule to ask him about stuff and get firsthand information about what it was like when that happened. So, you know, he was in frail health. I never took any of it for granted. I always thought that the coach would turn back into a pumpkin at any time.
Right. And you were working for him for
But I ended up working there the last 3 years of his life.
3 years. Wow. Did he ever give you, because you had, not just the book, you've been quite accomplished in the entertainment industry yourself. You wrote for Dick Cavett. You produced documentaries on the Three Stooges, John Lennon, the Beatles. Did he ever give you any advice that directly impacted your career?
He told me not to get married till I was 30.
Ah.
I wasn't that certain what I wanted to do. So I didn't really ask his advice, but when S.J. Perelman, who worked on Monkey Business and Horse Feathers, in addition to being one of the most distinguished humorists of the 20th century, writing for The New Yorker for decades and winning an Oscar for writing Around the World in 80 Days. I told him that I was interested in writing for television, and he recommended that I write for the theater because the writer has more control over his work. Which is a tall order, because writing for the theater is much harder to get off the ground than pitching ideas on a TV show. But he was right, because TV is a producer's medium, film is a director's medium, and the theater is a writer's medium. So from a purity standpoint, he was right. He did once say that I was a genius, which I don't know how many people can make that statement. The reason he said it was because I was the only one in the household who could figure out how to change the needle on the stereo. But the fact remains, he called me a genius.
There you go. And I can only assume you're going to discuss Aaron Fleming. And I experienced the similar issues actually when I worked for Penny Marshall. And a lot of people have read recently the tribulations that Stan Lee was put through his final years. It seems to be kind of a common theme when these very illustrious people get to an older age.
Right.
I don't want to say vulture, but people who see that person as a stepping stone for their own career.
And they come in and alienate the longtime friends and relatives. And yeah, it's a classic setup, unfortunately. It happened to Bela Lugosi and his last wife. It happened to John Barrymore and his last wife. There are a lot of these formerly strong, forceful men who, towards the end, get taken in by a younger woman. I don't know that there was really anything physical between Aaron and Groucho, but as he got weaker, he became more reliant on her. And she did, you know, in her defense, she came along at a time when nothing really was happening with his career. and his children weren't really looking to have that kind of responsibility. So she did put the spotlight back on him, for better or for worse. The groundswell of interest in the Marx Brothers had started already before her. She doesn't get credit for putting him, making him popular again. Because you can see, I mean, the Museum of Modern Art in New York had a Marx Brothers retrospective in '67, and Groucho and Zeppo were there. It was a big turnout, and Groucho would appear on his first Cavett Show appearance, I think, was 1969, which is several years before Aaron came on, when the crowd went crazy and loved all of his references and stuff. But she skillfully rode that wave that had already started, and she added to it with the one-man shows and the two LP set of the Carnegie Show and different TV appearances and stuff. And the truth was, Groucho loved having an audience. So even though some of his longtime friends would think he's too old to be doing this, he loved it. And he trusted Erin's judgment. But she was a very troubled woman.
Right.
She was later diagnosed as a paranoid schizophrenic. And while I have compassion for people with psychological problems, that doesn't excuse abusive behavior towards a frail older man. So it can explain some of what's going on, but that doesn't mean, oh, well, then it's okay that happened. So, you know, this volatile woman was in charge of this fragile man, and I'm 20 years old in between in this, trying to stay on everyone's good side. So yeah, the two dark elements were Groucho's mortality, the fact that I knew it couldn't last, and that he was just going to get weaker and spiral downward. He was in his mid-80s. And trying to deal with someone as unpredictable as Aaron. There would be things that we thought, oh, she won't mind. Then she would have a shit fit and slam the door and scream and throw things. And then there'd be other things where we'd think, oh God, when Aaron finds out about this, there's going to be hell. And she would laugh it off and dismiss it as nothing. So it was just impossible to try to second guess her. She ran boiling hot and freezing cold.
Now, I'm trying to remember, or trying to place that timeline. At some point, Groucho got a different manager, same manager as Alice Cooper. Was that before or after Aaron? Just out of pure.
Well, it was concurrent. It was only for a short time, and I didn't meet him. It was the time he spent with Alice Cooper and with Elton John was very, very slightly before I got the job. So I didn't really witness that, but Aaron by then was fully in charge of his life and business dealings and all that. So it wasn't that this guy took over for her or pushed her out of the way or something, because she would have lopped off his head. If she sensed any sense of a power struggle, that was it for them. In '74, Dick Cavett and his former Yale roommate, Chris Porterfield, came out with a book called Cavett, which was essentially an ongoing interview between the two of them. And at the time, I wasn't necessarily a fan of Cavett's, but I liked him, and I thought of him basically as the thinking man's Johnny Carson. But Groucho shuffled into my office at his house and said, "Read this, you'll enjoy it." And I thought, well, I guess I better read it, because he's going to ask me what I thought of it, and I don't want to say, oh, I haven't gotten around to it. Groucho and Woody Allen had provided dust jacket blurbs for Cabot's book, and so he had an advanced copy. And that was also very flattering that Groucho thought, Steve will enjoy this. You know, again, the idea that he knew my taste. You know, he once called me into his bedroom and handed me a 20 and said, go down to Tower Records and get a few things. You know what I like. And I thought, ooh, he doesn't have to tell me. He knows that I know what he likes. So he was impressed. I not only got 2 LPs, but brought change back. So that was...
And I remember in the book, he actually loved I think it was...
Starring Fred Astaire.
Yeah.
Because I had the album, and it was all kind of songs that Groucho liked from the Tin Pan. You know, it was Irving Berlin and George Gershwin and Jerome Kern, and he knew all these people. And, you know, Irving Berlin wrote the music for the Coconuts. So that was very gratifying. So I took Cabot home and started reading it. And from the very beginning, I thought, oh man, I relate to this guy. We were both obsessed with the classic comedians of the 30s. We both had our mothers die of cancer when we were young. We were both shy around girls. I thought, I bet I would get along with this guy, but he's this Yale-educated New York snob, and I'm just this kid out in California. What would be the circumstances under which we'd meet? And in the book, Cabot talks about meeting Groucho and going home and scribbling down key words to remind him of stories Groucho told him. And he said, now when I look at these scraps of paper, I don't know what some of them mean. And he mentioned a couple of them in the book. And I thought I might know what they were because of Groucho telling me the stories. So I wrote him a letter and explained that I was working for Groucho, and then he gave me the book, and I said, I'm going to guess what the stories were. And I sent it off, and I got a letter back that said, Dear Steve, you were uncannily on the nose with your 2 guesses. Write again and I'll answer again and better. And that began a friendship that continues to this day. He loved the fact that I was a pipeline into the intrigue going on at Groucho's house with Aaron Fleming and the warring factions of Aaron and her friends, and then Groucho's son Arthur and the old friends, and battling for control. And I could, you know, he had written me, you may speak freely, meaning I won't tell anyone the things you're telling me. So then when Groucho died, I thought, well, that's it for my connection to Cabot. Because why would he want to stay in touch with me if the Groucho thing has ended? And that week he phoned me from New York, and he said, listen, just because Groucho's gone, I hope we're not going to lose touch. And by the way, I hope you don't mind, but I've shown some of your letters to Woody, and he says they're very well written.
Wow.
So I emptied the urine out of my shoes. And so we continued to correspond and talk on the phone. In '78, I flew to New York to visit because a friend of mine was staying there, so I had a place to stay, and got to meet Cabot in person. And I was nervous for about 4 seconds, and it was like we went to junior high together. It really was just like I thought it would be when I read the book, but thought we'll never. And then in '82, he hired me to come to New York and write for him at HBO.
Oh, wow.
And this was a few years after Groucho died, and I was working at Universal in the steno pool, typing scripts from 11 to 8, Kojak and Columbo and Emergency, and all these, just pushing him through my Selectric too. But Cabot thought, I bet Stoliar could do this. So I left LAX, a secretary, and touched down at JFK, this writer from California. And of course, the people at HBO, it's weird, you know, I thought, gee, I could I could have an accent or a limp, and people would just accept that that's what I was like. Or just a guy they've never heard of, but Dick Cavett wants him here. So the whole Manhattan adventure was fabulous. Cavett would just say, you want to go down and see this? And I'd pull on my shoes and we'd go just walking around New York. I got to meet Woody Allen through him. I got to meet Katharine Hepburn and Marshall Brickman. And I just drank in the whole Manhattan experience. But then work dried up. And as it dried up, I got an offer to work on a series in California for a bunch of money. And it's like, well, do I want to temp as a secretary in New York or get a bunch of money? Could I have some more coffee even if you're not our server and don't even work here?
Oh, sure. I'll let somebody know.
Thank you.
More water shoes, please. Thanks.
So I came back to LA and had varying degrees of success writing for different television shows. And people would, I would have lunch with people, not unlike what we're doing at this very minute. And I would tell them stories from my Groucho days, and they would say, why don't you write a book? And I would think, oh, for heaven's sakes, I'm such a footnote to his life. I was just there at the end. I don't have stories about making duck soup and You Bet Your Life and Broadway in the 20s. I came in 74 and he died in 77. But then I began to think, but maybe there's an article in me for... Funny you should ask.
I know. It's almost a miracle.
As if by magic.
I know.
What is that, a ghost with...
Oh, it's my little ghosty.
I don't want you to dump the water on yourself.
Just start diving.
Yeah, what time is it? Oh, it's about...
That's so me too. I'm like that kind of person. I'm so futzy like that. So
Thank
it happens. There we go. Did you need any more creamer or anything like that?
No, it's still there.
Just want to make sure. We just brewed this too, so it's very hot.
So there's no excuse if it's awful.
Oh yeah, there's really not. And you blame Seth. His name is Seth. Just
Okay.
look like you're blaming him.
It's very biblical. Okay. You see, Groucho had no influence on me. His frustration was that he couldn't insult people because it was such a trademark. If he was at a restaurant and said, this soup tastes like dishwater, it's like, oh, wait till I tell this chef Groucho insulted. It's like, wait a minute. No, I mean, it's lousy. Oh, thank you.
Geez, that's like Simon Cowell and people asking him to insult their singing.
Yes. Oh, he loved it? That's not fun. So I thought maybe I could take the best stories and weave them into something for Vanity Fair or Esquire or something like that. I could probably do that and just deal with the cream of the cream. So I thought, I need to sit down and try to recreate the chronology, the sequence of events. And I've always had a passion for archaeology as a kid and even now. So the archaeologist in me, we are in fact fine, thank you.
Tell Seth he did a great job.
Okay.
I thought I'm going to start an archaeological dig of my papers, my letters, my notes, because this is like almost 20 years after Groucho died.
Right.
And bit by bit, puzzle piece by puzzle piece, I asked friends whom I had sent letters to at the time and saved the letter, because I would come home from Groucho's and I would zip a piece of paper in the typewriter and say, oh, this funny thing happened today, or so-and-so came over, and the ones who saved them copied them and sent them to me. Otherwise, those stories would have been lost forever because I wouldn't have remembered those. And I started just A to B to C to D, and I was like on page 9 and hadn't met Groucho yet. And I thought, well, this is going to be longer than I thought. Then I worried, which is something I'm just gifted at. Given almost any situation, I can worry about it. I thought I'm going to end up with something that's too long for an article and too short for a book. I'll have this, novella or something. This thing that's like 57 pages long. But I thought, don't worry about that. Just get it down, and mush it around later. I have a Post-it on my computer screen on which I scribbled, just get it all down and mush it around later. Because sometimes I start to edit myself and think, maybe it should start at maybe this, and then I think, no. Barf it out on the paper, then get the pen out and go, oh, okay, we don't need this paragraph. Anyway, that's my style for what little that's worth.
Well, it's good writing advice because that age-old adage, the key to writing is rewriting.
It's true. It stops so many people. But it's really whatever works for you. I remember one of Cavit's PBS shows, and S.J. Perelman was his guest. And I remember him saying, this is, by the way, a spot-on S.J. Perelman impression for the 2 people worldwide who'll appreciate. James Thurber, when he would write out longhand, everything out, several drafts, and then cut it back. I prefer to anguish over every word I write. In my valiant search for le mot juste, the right word, I just agonized to get it right the first time. So there is no right way to do it, because Thurber and Perelman are both equally worshipped wordsmiths, but that's how they both went about it. So I'm more of the Thurber school of just get it down and then get the cup of coffee and sit back and go, oh, okay, I see I can connect these two. So I wrote this book. And supportive friend said, I'm sure you'll have no trouble getting a publisher, because this is an inside look at a legendary star who these things have never been disclosed before, and I had photos. And then came the parade of rejection slips. My cover letter said, this is not a biography of Groucho Marx. It is a story of a fan and his idol in the twilight years, and I would get rejection slips that said, we're not interested in any Groucho Marx biographies at this time. And I just wanted to throttle them and say, did you even read the goddamn cover letter? Never mind. But as they say, it only takes one yes. And I finally got the yes, and it got published. And then I came out with a reissue in 2012 that, in addition to having it in paperback and Kindle, I did another epilogue catching people up on what had happened to the people in the book in the 15 years since the hardcover had come out.
Right.
And reactions of some of the people in the book to the thing. And now, there have been people from early on who said, have you ever thought about this as a movie? And the truth is, it had occurred to me while I was writing it that there are elements of like My Favorite Year and even like Sunset Boulevard in that like an aging star. In Sunset Boulevard, it's the aging star who's mentally unbalanced. In my story, there's an aging star, but the unbalanced person is Aaron, who's in charge of the aging star.
Right.
And then when Ed Wood came out, I thought, yeah, something like that. It's not the story of Bela Lugosi. It's this fanatic kid connecting with his idol in his declining years. So then started another series of rejections. I remember my agent arranged for me to meet with some producer. This was like right after the book came out, the hardcover came out.
Right.
In 96. And I thought, wow, this is just going to be like a hot knife in butter. I'm just going to zoom through this. And I sit down with this guy and he said, first, let me tell you, I loved your book. That's good. But if you think there's a movie in it, you're mistaken. And let me explain why.
Oh.
There is not enough here that would justify a film. Now, if you wanted to do a biography of Groucho's entire life, then I could see using it to bookend the story. You know, Groucho in his late years telling you about it, and then his life, and then at the very end. But and I'm thinking, why did my agent even arrange for this? And it was kind of like that. It would get optioned and nothing would happen, and then the rights would come back to me. I had a very well-intentioned friend in the business who put me in touch with a writer-director, and we had lunch. And it sounded more encouraging because he believed there was a film in the book. And then he said, the first thing we'll have to figure out is whose point of view is the story told from? And he said, I was thinking it might be interesting if it was from Groucho's point of view. And it's the old Groucho, and maybe the young Groucho is inside. And I thought, no, you don't understand. Steve is the character that people relate to as just this regular, normal, average guy dropped into this petri dish of intrigue and fame and all this stuff. It is through his innocent eyes that we see this story unfold. It is not in Groucho's head where imprisoned is the younger Groucho. And so that became a thanks but no thanks. And the friend of mine who had put us in touch thought I was crazy. She said, do you have another offer? And I said, no. And she said, Steve, you never say no to something if you don't have something else. And I said, I have different priorities. This isn't just about getting a deal. This is my kid. I got this cow and a handful of magic beans, and I get to do this transaction once. It appears as if it's actually coming to pass. I can't discuss the specifics except to say that I'm very happy with how it is shaping up. I'm very grateful that I have not been marginalized because, especially after years in TV, I'm so used to, it's like you write this and they give you some money, which is fine. And then they don't want to hear from you after that. And, friends of mine who aren't in the business would say, oh, but that's ridiculous because you're the one that wrote the story. And I said, you don't understand. Despite years writing for television, I don't have a track record in feature films. And people with the money want to minimize the risk. And it's just sort of given that someone that writes a book that gets made into a movie is given some money, which is fine with me, and then told you and a guest can attend the premiere, but until then, please lose our phone number.
Right.
In this case, for all the waiting I've been doing to be marginalized and find out that all these decisions are being made, I have been in the loop, and respect has been shown for my input. Doesn't mean I have control, but they listen and implement a goodly number, and it's not just lip service, because it's very hard to enforce that. I mean, my contract has something in it about, conferring with and consulting with, but you can just hold the phone away from your ear and then every 2 minutes go, right, go ahead with what you were saying. And then, continue painting your nails or having lunch or something. But so I'm very much a part of this. I believe we are looking to film it this spring or summer. There's a lot of moving parts and schedules and things get changed around, but it appears as if it is about to be announced and it will be made later this year. And I have to tell you how surreal it is to imagine walking onto the set that essentially at least partly recreates the house that I had spent the better part of 3 years in, meeting people, playing people I knew, including someone playing me at 20 now that I'm in my late 60s. It's like, I don't know whether it's meta or what you call that, but even though this is a collaborative effort and, that there's money involved and careers and resumes and all that of all the people that'll be attached to it, it's a very personal project for me. It's not as if I wrote a book about Douglas MacArthur or made up some story about a kid that goes to Venus and starts a colony there or something. This is a piece of my life that changed my life, because when I started at Groucho's, I was a history major because of my passion and fanaticism for history and archaeology. But then it was just so irresistible, the whole show business, the creativity, the arts, that I thought, then I shifted to motion picture television and got a BA in that, which entitles me to absolutely nothing, but I do have a degree from UCLA. And I wrote the initial draft of the screenplay. The person who will be directing it is also a writer. So he did a rewrite, but again, it bears an uncanny resemblance to my story and the draft, and will be sharing credit with him on it. So again, I was not pushed aside and sand kicked in my face it's like, we're professionals and we know how this is done. So it's a very strange, again, the idea of seeing people playing these people and playing me at 19 with mutton chops and full head of hair. It's quite an experience, and it's only really just getting underway.
That is incredible. I would like to ask a bit more about the process. Yes, because, and I understand you can't talk about cast, I understand you can't talk about director, but there is a studio attached, if I recall off of IMDb.
There's Cold Iron Pictures is a sort of boutique, which makes sense. This is not a Marvel. There's no explosions, sorry to say, just Aaron's personality. It's a boutique company that has done some mighty fine, smaller films. And so at least it doesn't get lost in the gears of a major studio. But then, of course, then as you get different financial entities, it becomes, that's why there's you see a movie and it says a so-and-so production of a so-and-so film, a presentation of worst case scenario productions, filmed by Ned and Bert, and so we'll have that, and it's possible that could it end up connected to a major studio as a distributor. I don't know. That's nothing that I know anything about or have anything to do with. Only in terms of keeping tabs on where things are at. But the plan is for it to be a theatrical motion picture. If it turns out that it's like Netflix or HBO or something, I'm fine with that, because a lot more people see it that way. So, if nothing else, I've learned to be extremely flexible, having been, chained to this roller coaster from some years, watching it get closer and then nothing and then a glimmer and then back a step and forward 2 steps. It's not for the squeamish. And it's also not, it's like anyone that thinks that writing a book is the key to riches is a fool. If you're a famous author to begin with, there's, Stephen King can count on a certain amount of money. But don't write a book to make money, and don't write a book thinking this will make a great movie and then I'll have my villa in France. But it does seem to be, from a creativity standpoint, very gratifying, and I'm pleased with how things are shaking down, and I'm pleased that I am as in the loop as I am, because it would be very easy to be treated like so many other just the writer types. Very interesting adventure for me.
Nice. And you have another book coming out too.
What?
Yeah, that's what I heard. I don't know who I heard it from, but
Well, it's wholly different from this book, but my sisters had all of the letters my dad wrote my mother during World War II, and we had never read through them. Dad had a scrapbook of photos that I loved going through because it had pictures of dead Nazis and bombed out buildings, and Dad in his uniform. And he was fighting the Nazis. Obviously, he wasn't fighting them in the Pacific, I must say. And he was in North Africa and Italy and France and Germany, and was able to take all these great photos or have them taken of him as he'd hand his camera to a guy and say, get a picture of me in front of the bombed out Sicily. But none of us had ever looked through the letters, I think partly because there was a sense that there was an intimacy there that wasn't any of our business. And the other thing was there were so many, and they were either single-spaced or tightly handwritten to fit as much as he could on the page, and with no illustrations or anything, and it just didn't seem like something any of us was. But then we started looking through them, and again, the historian archaeologist in me thought, these are much better written than I would have given Dad credit for, and these are really interesting. All of these first-hand stories that have never been told before. And I started thinking, you know, there's all those Civil War diaries just written by some random Yank or Reb that end up making for compelling reading, because it's like, you know, the general says we might be able to take the fort by Thursday, but it's awful cold. And it's like, it doesn't matter that you're not famous. You have recorded something that's a piece of history, and it deserves. And my sisters initially thought, well, it's fine for the family, but this isn't going to, why would that be again? Who is going to want to read this? But I took advantage of the COVID pandemic and being stuck in my apartment with my adorable cat, Oscar. And I thought, I'm going to do this. And my sister shipped me cartons of binders that had, my parents had vowed to write each other every day to keep it's sort of like to have a conversation that's unbroken even by a world war. And they came so close to it. And I don't have my mother's letters, A, because they weren't supposed to keep them because they weren't censored. And if my mom said something like, hey, I heard you guys should be in Berlin by the 12th, you don't want that to fall into enemy hands. And also, my dad would have had to schlep this duffel bag of my wife's letters all over Europe. But Dad was so meticulous in his answers. He would say, you asked about whether we're doing this. You asked about that. Plus, little capsule reviews of the movies they're seeing. And Mom, what she thought of, and what's playing on your hit parade. You know, oh, they're playing this now, and he'd remember dancing with her to that when they were dating, and he'd get so heart sick over over missing her and the baby. And I thought, there's a lot of good stuff in here. But some of the letters were 10 pages long.
wow.
And I realized, so he was gone. She didn't save letters from when he was still in the States, like in basic training. And he was actually sent to Fresno for part of it. And Mom and the baby came out and got an apartment in California for a few months before. She didn't start saving them till he went overseas. So they're from January 44 to November 45. And there's perhaps 500 letters, perhaps over 2,000 pages. And I realized I can't get any kind of perspective on this until I input them all and then read what I've got. I can't start editing while I'm writing because I don't know what I'm reading. and they couldn't be scanned and edited.
They were all handwritten.
Handwritten, and even the typed ones, how do you then cut the beginning of the So I just had to sit at my iMac and push through thousands of pages trying to decipher Dad's handwriting. And of course, since my mom 3-hole punched and put those little gummed reinforcements on the holes, then that would obliterate a word, and I'd have to figure it out from the context. And I actually wore out the A key on my keyboard to the point, at first, the letter itself disappeared, but I remembered that your hand remembers it's the A. Then I started going through the plastic, and it was like a molar with a bad cavity. And I just, every day for hours, I would just, it's like, I've got to push through. I've got to at least get to August of 44 today. And ended up with this massive Word document. And only then could I begin to go through and think, all right, nobody cares about who my mom is playing cards with. Nobody cares about this thing. Nobody cares. And it's like, all right, it's still way too big. And I just would keep going back through it, cutting and cutting, and back through it and cutting, because I'm thinking it has to be of interest to the average reader who's interested in World War II. I mean, it's
Right.
I got to get it to a manageable length, and I finally did, and also realized how much of a supplement Dad's photos are, because he has pictures of most of the guys he talks about. So when he'll say Lieutenant Mika did this today, there's Lieutenant Mika, there's Louis, there's Roger in front of the... One of the things I noticed, Dad, we're Jewish, and Dad was basically a secular Jew. He wasn't, we didn't observe the Sabbath. He didn't talk about God. It wasn't a religious family. But we were certainly into the foods and Yiddish expressions and things like that. So when I was reading through the letters, I was astonished at how many times he mentioned salami. He would say, one of the other boys got a salami and gave me a piece of it, and boy, it really took me back. See if you can send me a salami. And in fact, Katz's Deli in New York, their motto is send a salami to your boy in the army, because they had 3 sons that were in World War II. And that's,
Oh my goodness.
So then Mom starts sending him a salami, and it would arrive rotten because it's spoiled in the hold of the ship during the summer. Then he'd say, I don't know if we're supposed to, maybe we better wait till it's cooler. And then he'd say, Louis got a salami the day before yesterday, and it was fine. Maybe if you wrap it separately from this. And then Mom was telling Dad's brother, and so he was getting salamis. It's like the salami brigade, and this one would be rotten, but then it would be good. And he would say, oh, that I had to give Joe Dines ate a quarter of it, so he owes me a quarter of a salami. And so in and around all these stories about bombed ruins and refugees and Nazis and the Gestapo and all this stuff. And then he's saying, I'm worried about you wasting meat points on salamis for me because you've got to feed the baby. So let's hold off on that. And then, boy, I really have a hankering for a salami. So-and-so got a jar of pickles, of kosher pickles, and I thought, boy, wouldn't a salami go great? So just every now and again, if you could, and all through the whole thing, there's all these great stories, and then salami arrived fine, so did this. But it also gives you an idea of what is it they're asking, the GIs are asking for, they're not getting. So you hear about these candy bars they don't make anymore, and that Dad loved the Cheez-Its, but he didn't really want the tuna because they get that there. So the title is Salamis and Swastikas, Letters Home from a GI Jew. Because that really is the angle. That's what makes it different.
You're good at titles.
I am, thank you. It's really what it is. It isn't just a GI, it's a Jewish GI, but he wasn't all that religious. But you see it grow as he runs into the horrors of what the Nazis were doing and meeting people that had horrible experiences. And then as people are coming back from the camps and we're seeing what had happened there. And there's a lot of talk about God, God is on our side. And then when FDR dies, and then Ernie Pyle, the war correspondent, like the same week, Dad said, I guess that was God's trade-off on letting us win this war, is I guess that was the price we had to pay, but God was still on the side of, and I thank God and I pray. So there's a lot, there's pictures of him having Passover Seder in a bomb-damaged synagogue in France. A picture of him eating matzah. It's like this such extraordinary imagery to counterpoint the stuff. So, he'll talk about going to a service here and, hanging out with the Jewish guys and the foods they ate and the little, the Yiddish helping when he got into Germany, because he spoke French, but he didn't speak Italian, so he was lost in Italy. But the German, his Yiddish sort of got him by. So there's a literal and figurative Jewish flavor to a lot of the story of the book, in addition. And then, just wonderful stories of it. That he adopted a dog that ended up running on stage during a Bob Hope USO show. And Hope said, hey, you better hide him. If Crosby sees that dog, he'll throw a saddle over it. And then, strangely, nearly 50 years later, I was at Bob Hope's house with Dick Cavett, because they were recording an interview. And in between, Hope was just milling around with his hands in his pockets, whistling. And I told him, I said, in 1945 in Darmstadt, Germany, my dad was at one of your shows, and he had a dog in his arms that leapt across and I told him of the Crosby line, and Hope chuckled at his own. He said, did I say that? And I thought, this is really surreal to be able to tell him back the story that happened during World War II, and here it was like 1991 or something. And it's coming out in March.
And that is Season 2, Episode 8 of the Producers Lounge podcast. Thank you to my guest, Steve Stoliar, for joining us. You can find out more about him by checking out the show notes and visiting our website at greaterandgrander.com. Our intro and outro music today was Piano by Jota et One. Additional music is Hello, I Must Be Going from the movie Animal Crackers, music by Harry Ruby, lyrics by Bert Kalmer, sung by Groucho Marx, Margaret Dumont, and chorus. Our episode still image is the cover of Raised Eyebrows with original photo by Drew Friedman. If you have any questions or suggestions, we'd love to hear from you. Let us know in the episode comments. You can stay up to date by following us on social media at the handle Greater Grander, all one word. Make sure to subscribe wherever fine podcasts are found, and also, if you like what we do, share this podcast with a friend who you think will enjoy it. Join us next week for more cocktails and questions, and until then, keep producing dreams.
I'll do anything you say. In fact, I'll even stay. But I must be going.